The villains in Star Trek III are Romulans.
We are Klingons!
Commander Krug may insist they are Klingons, but the way these characters are written points somewhere else. And in this video, we're going to unpack that step by step, so you can see why their behaviour and thinking lean far closer to Romulan writing than the label Klingon suggests. Some of you will be thinking, we know that the original plan was to feature Romulans as the movie's villains, hence the movie featuring the name Bird of Prey and the cloaking technology. But here's the part most fans miss. It's not just about the plot points of the film. This is about how the characters think.
New cities, homes in the country, and overhead, fluttering in the breeze, the flag of the Federation. Charming.
The script never stopped being Romulan. The film put actors in Klingon makeup, but never fully undid the fact they were written as Romulans. Before we go any further, there's something we need to clear up first. It's important not to read the Star Trek franchise backwards. After Star Trek III, future Star Trek productions, especially the Next Generation, would redefine Klingons as a culture of honourable warriors.
Or do you hear the cry of the warrior? Calling you to battle, calling you to glory like a Klingon.
As fans, we often take that later depiction and assume it always applied. But when Harve Bennett was writing Star Trek III, obviously none of that subsequent material existed. So we need to understand what it meant to be Klingon or Romulan back in the early 1980s. And in practice, that means we must understand how they were depicted in the Star Trek which existed before Star Trek III. Now that we've cleared the slate, we can finally look at Star Trek III accurately. The first step in our investigation is to look at the surface level clues left in Star Trek III, the obvious signs that Harve Bennett wrote the villains as Romulans and later switched them to being Klingons. The original series establishes early on that Romulans have ships that can be identified by a giant bird of prey painted on their hull.
I doubt if they'll radio and identify themselves.
You'll know, sir. They're painted like a giant bird of prey.
And the same episode establishes that Romulans have developed cloaking technology, both of which we see in Star Trek III. And the original series also establishes that there is a neutral zone between the Federation and Romulan territories.
Entry into which by either side would constitute an act of war.
And yet the Klingons in Star Trek III also mention a Federation neutral zone. Another sign that these were originally Romulans. Although the neutral zone reference is an interesting one, Star Trek II uses the phase in the Kobayashi Maru test, where the Enterprise enters a neutral zone and encounters Klingon ships.
Now entering the neutral zone.
Klingon cruisers bearing 316.
This apparent continuity error is easily explained by our accepting that there is also a neutral zone between the Federation and Klingon empires. And the practical reason is that they reused the opening model shot of Klingon vessels from the previous Star Trek The Motion Picture. So we have the obvious things which give away the villains were originally Romulans: neutral zone, cloaking technology, bird of prey. But the obvious signs only tell part of the story. The real giveaway is how these characters behave. So we need to unpack what it means to be a Klingon or Romulan character. To understand how the Star Trek III villains would behave if they were written as Klingons, we need to outline the traits the original series actually gave Klingons. The Series 1 episode Errand of Mercy introduces and establishes every major pillar of the original series Klingons.
Negotiations with the Klingon Empire are on the verge of breaking down. Starfleet Command anticipates a surprise attack. We are to proceed to Organia and take whatever steps are necessary to prevent the Klingons from using it as a base.
Kirk and Spock beam down to Organia, trying to reason with the Organians about the danger of their planet being occupied by the Klingons, and insist that they should accept Federation protection.
What you're saying, Captain, is that we seem to have a choice between dealing with you or your enemies.
No, sir. With the Federation, you have a choice. You have none with the Klingons. The Klingons are a military dictatorship. War is their way of life. Life under the Klingon rule would be very unpleasant. We offer you protection.
Soon after they arrive, a party of Klingons led by Commander Kor arrives and unilaterally seizes control of the planet.
I am Kur,
military governor of Organia. You are now subjects of the Klingon Empire. You will find there are many rules and regulations. They will be posted. Violation of the smallest of them will be punished by death.
The Klingons expand their empire through brutality and intimidation. But importantly, Klingons are completely at ease with that brutality.
And you're proud of it.
It is a tool, a weapon, somewhat drastic, but very efficient.
Klingons govern through fear because fear works, and they don't apologise for it. And Kor sees the Federation, and humans in particular, as being capable of much brutality.
The fact is, Captain, I have a great admiration for your Starfleet. You of the Federation, you are much like us. I mean that we are similar as a species. Here we are on a planet of sheep. 2 tigers, predators, hunters, killers. And it is precisely that which makes us great. And there is a universe to be taken.
And throughout the rest of the original series, this portrayal of Klingons as brutal remains consistent.
Kirk, my ship is disabled. I claim yours.
With the Klingons, even their more subtle forms of expansion are not very subtle. In the episode A Private Little War, a Klingon operative interferes openly by arming one side with advanced weapons. And in The Trouble with Tribbles, we see the rare use of an undercover agent.
Mr. Barris thinks that Klingon agents may try to sabotage it.
They don't like you, Mr. Darvin. I wonder why.
Jim, this man is a Klingon.
But his mission is blunt. He is there to poison the grain so the humans cannot use it in their colonization of Sherman's planet. But let's return to the episode Errand of Mercy for a moment. It tells us a lot about the Klingons and how Klingons like Kor view the Federation. But the episode also introduces another interesting question about the Federation itself for us to consider. Is the Federation an expansionist imperial power in denial about its true nature?
What you're saying, Captain, is that we seem to have a choice between dealing with you or your enemies.
No, sir. With the Federation, you have a choice. You have none with the Klingons. The Klingons are a military dictatorship. Life under the Klingon rule would be very unpleasant. We offer you protection.
The Federation expands its influence by persuasion and incentives, not conquest. It still grows an empire, but it does so in a way that appears benevolent. But importantly, in Errand of Mercy, Kor doesn't comment on that side of the Federation.
You of the Federation, you are much like us. 2 tigers, predators, hunters, killers.
Kor admires the potential raw brutality of humans as a species, but not that they build a massive space empire through diplomacy instead. In the original series, it's the Romulans who are paranoid about the Federation's expansive imperial nature. To understand that paranoia properly, we need to look at how the original series portrays the Romulans, and how that will eventually relate to what we see in Star Trek III. The Romulans are first encountered early in Series 1, in the episode Balance of Terror. It's established that Earth fought a war against the Romulans a century earlier.
The neutral zone, established by treaty after the Earth-Romulan conflict of over a century ago. Entry into which, by either side, would constitute an act of war.
Romulans are treacherous.
Earth believes the Romulans to be warlike, cruel, treacherous. And only the Romulans know what they think of Earth.
In Balance of Terror, a Romulan vessel painted with a bird of prey and operating with a cloaking device has crossed the neutral zone to attack the recently constructed Earth outpost stations. There's been no contact with the Romulans for a century. The Federation sees the Romulans as an enemy from an old war, rather than a continuous threat, whereas the Romulans are continually on standby about possible Federation incursions. In contrast to the Klingons, continuous paranoia about Federation expansion is a defining Romulan trait. Balance of Terror also shows a Romulan culture based on political maneuvering.
Take care, Commander. He has friends, and friends of his kind mean power, and power is danger.
Danger and I are old companions.
With a commander who conducts his own independent attacks to gain favour with the leader.
Our gift to the homeland, another war.
This suggests a culture where everyone is acting independently to further their own aims, perhaps at your expense. In that situation, hypervigilance becomes a survival strategy. We also see how readily humans leap to the idea of Romulan infiltration.
I'm pointing out that we could have Romulan spies aboard this ship.
I agree, sir. Respectfully recommend all decks maintain security alert.
Such a jump to a conclusion about espionage implies that the Romulans have long used covert agents as standard. There are 2 other original series episodes featuring Romulans, The Deadly Years and The Enterprise Incident. Both episodes feature the Enterprise crossing over into Romulan space, only to find out they are instantly met with overwhelming force.
Lieutenant Uhura, let me know if we contact any Romulan.
I think we just made contact, sir.
Sound red alert. Man battle stations, stand by main phases.
We are surrounded.
The Romulans respond as if they have been on constant standby for a possible Federation incursion, showing how deeply paranoid they are about the possibility. As we discussed earlier, perhaps the Federation is expansionist, but in this case, the Federation has left the Romulans alone for a century, so the fact they remain on guard after a century of peace shows how deeply that suspicion runs. And interestingly, in the Enterprise incident, we see Romulans using vessels of Klingon design.
That's a Klingon ship. Couldn't be not in this area.
Intelligence reports Romulans now using Klingon design.
The real world reason being that the model for the Romulan bird of prey from Balance of Terror had been damaged. But in the Star Trek universe, it suggests that there was once an alliance between the Klingons and the Romulans which involved an exchange of technology. A useful in-universe explanation for why the Klingons of Star Trek III now have cloaking technology. Now that we've laid out both sides, we can compare their traits directly. We see clearly established patterns in the original series depictions of Klingons and Romulans. Klingons are a blunt, militaristic empire which expands through intimidation and force. Their tactics are blunt rather than subtle. Even their agents operate in plain sight. They go undercover only when necessary, and even then, only operate blatant direct sabotage.
Jim, this man is a Klingon.
All right, I poisoned the grain. Take them away.
Also, we only ever see Klingons operate within the authority of their own government.
Do you know why we are so strong? Because we are a unit. Each of us is part of the greater whole, always under surveillance. Even a commander like myself.
By contrast, Romulans are secretive, treacherous, operate covertly, often independently, for their own political ambitions, and most importantly, are highly paranoid about Federation expansion. And so now we've mapped out how Klingons and Romulans were depicted back in the original series, we now have everything we need to evaluate Star Trek III and look at how the villains actually behave, and whether their behaviour matches the archetype of Klingons or Romulans. In Star Trek III, we first meet our villains in a scene where an undercover agent has captured information about the Genesis device, information which was classified by Starfleet. The agent is killed to prevent a potential leak, a secrecy-first instinct that fits Romulan methods far more than the blunt Klingon approach.
Ich lach Jowish.
And upon reviewing the information, the Klingons are concerned about the implications of Federation expansion.
Great power. To control. Dominate. Speak.
Impressive. They can make planets.
Oh yes, new cities, homes in the country, your woman at your side, children playing at your feet, and overhead, fluttering in the breeze, the flag of the Federation. Charming.
The previous movie, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, had introduced the Genesis device as a device capable of performing rapid, almost instant terraforming of a lifeless planet.
Matter is reorganized with life-generating results. Instead of a dead moon, a living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
The theme throughout the film is that Genesis could have destructive side effects. Genesis has two components. One is a planet killer destroying what is already on the planet.
What if this thing we use where life already exists?
It would destroy such life in favor of its new matrix.
There can't be so much as a microbe or the show's off.
And the second remakes the planet in a form ready for Federation colonization. Star Trek II provides the groundwork to write the villains of Star Trek III as following the archetype of original series Klingons. But that's not what the villains of Star Trek III do. If Star Trek III had villains written as original series Klingons, Genesis would be praised as a terror weapon, but that's not what the script does, and instead Krug frames it as an engine of Federation colonial expansion.
Great power to control, dominate.
The script seems ready to go there, but instead Krug explains the true, deeper concern of what control and dominate mean.
Oh yes, new cities, homes in the country, your woman at your side, children playing at your feet, and overhead, fluttering in the breeze, the flag of the Federation. Charming.
Covert operations performing data theft, paranoia about Federation colonial expansion and domination, and an apparently rogue operation separate from that of the main government.
Even as our emissaries negotiate for peace with the Federation, we will act for the preservation of our race. We will seize the secret of this weapon.
And doing so using a ship painted with a bird of prey, which uses a cloaking device.
Klingon bird of prey, sir. She's arming torpedoes. Fire, Mr. Scott.
The villains of Star Trek III are Romulans. Now, to be thorough, there are two moments in the film that do lean towards a traditional original series Klingon archetype. These were almost certainly late adjustments during the production. The first is the killing of a subordinate. Being harsh to subordinates is a Romulan trait.
Your carelessness might have ended this glorious mission. You're reduced 2 steps in rank, return to post.
But the Star Trek III version is unmistakably Klingon brutality. The other moment is the scene with Saavik and David.
The Genesis experiment is a failure.
A failure. The most powerful destructive force ever created. You will tell me the secret of the Genesis torpedo.
I have no knowledge.
Then I hope pain is something you enjoy.
Krug's awe at the destructive power of Genesis and his brutal threat of pain both echo classic Klingon writing. But these are surface additions. The script beneath them remains Romulan. The underlying behaviour, strategy, paranoia, independence from central authority, and ideological framing all align with the Romulan template. One last thing to consider. Future Star Trek writers used the Klingon template from Star Trek III as a guide for their writing of Klingons. So some of the Romulan DNA baked into Star Trek III didn't stay in this film. It shaped the Klingons we met for decades afterwards.